When you do what casino, care, what casino for the casino, what inside darkness, what up on the ground, style waka, style waka, waka to nobody, waka to nobody, waka to nobody, waka to nobody. Step on back. Do you know those people? Those people that they call lawyers.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dele Farotimi. It's my first time of trying these out. I'm very sure I'm going to be making a whole lot of amateurish errors. It's not my fault. I allowed myself to get suckered into doing this tonight. How did it happen? So there I was, Luddite myself, on Twitter, trialing out Twitter as a platform for what is probably like the second week of my experience on that platform. And I opened my big mouth. I tweeted and I said, give me 10% of the Nigerian youth who are currently stuck on BBN, and I'll start a YouthQuake. And some smarters counted and came back and said to me, so what's stopping you? And that was a challenge I couldn't pass up, because what the gentleman, as savage as he thought he was being, what he didn't know was that he provoked a part of me into action. So instead of sitting down and constantly preaching about how it is possible to educate a people to the point where they can break their fetters, I realized that I could walk my talk, right? So I got 2 weeks. I got 2 weeks during which I intend to speak to you gentlemen and ladies out there. And let's see if we can somehow persuade ourselves that not only is our country worth saving, it is truly worth birthing. Because what we have right now is the Nigerian state, which is very strong. But I am not too sure if we have the Nigerian nation within this current mess in which we all exist. So when purpose is unknown, abuse becomes inevitable. That is something I'm very fond of saying. So the purpose of this is to, first of all, seek to educate ourselves about what the problems are. And having identified the problems, then seek a way out of these problems, because it is not sufficient to merely bellyache. I've done quite a fair bit of bellyaching in the last few days and weeks. And this cannot just be about bellyaching. It's got to be about first educating ourselves and then moving beyond that to deal with the substance of the issues. The difference between an army and a mob is discipline. But you cannot discipline an untutored mind. It is only a tutored mind that can be truly disciplined. Now, if you do not teach a man what his rights are, or if he is ignorant about what his history might be, it becomes difficult for him to frame the issues correctly. So what I have done is that I have set out something of a course outline, for want of a better word. Remember, I'm not a lecturer. I'm just trialing these out and hoping that as I seek to teach, I would also be learning. And I suspect that tonight it would be best if I started with some of the frequently asked questions that I have had to deal with since the beginning of this season of consciousness, so to say. And the first of those questions that I have been asked, that I found myself having to answer, is how do we subscribe to a peaceful revolution in a country that is driven by violence? How do we overcome them? Violence is almost inevitable to secure the change we desire. Now, I have been asked questions that more or less says pretty much this by different interviewers and interlocutors when I've had occasion to argue, even amongst my own friends. The question always revolves around, okay, so how do you avoid violence? They will kill us, right? They will shoot us. Even this afternoon, I've had occasion to have this very same discussion with a younger friend of mine. And I then pointed something out. The person seeking change must be clear at every point that he gains nothing by violence. And the knowledge that he gains nothing by violence should lead very quickly to a disavowal of violence as a tactic. Now, let us be clear that the Nigerian state and most dictatorial and repressive states routinely visit violence on their citizens. And the security of lives and liberties are rarely ever guaranteed to anyone who dares to challenge the Nigerian system. However, it must also be clear that we allow ourselves to be dragged into an argument that should never be the concern of the person seeking changes. And that is, would it be violent? That is a function of how much conscience still exists within the ranks of the rulers. The fact that a man is demanding fairness, is asking for change, has not embraced arms, is not looking to force his will on another violently, is speaking the language of peace and is seeking persuasion, should be sufficient to divest him of the duty to answer the question as to whether the character of the revolution would be violent or non-violent, because the reality is that it does not lie in his hand. It is actually in the hand of the system that responds to non-violence with violence to then answer the question as to the character of that revolution or the change, which is exactly what revolution is. What is a revolution? I've found myself asked this question, and it is important since there is no NBC to stop my broadcast, there is no TV station anchor who is sensitive to what the system will say. Let me explain myself. It's been a while since the word revolution acquired a villainous reputation in the Nigerian space, and it is not by accident. The first time the word revolution entered Nigerian lexicon was in January 1966. It was the Kaduna Nzeogwu coup, the very first of the military adventurists who entered the Nigerian political space. They named themselves the Revolutionary Council. Practically every bandit that shot their way to power in Nigeria have adopted the same tag. They called themselves Revolutionary Councils. So every time you use the word revolution, because it evokes memories of violence unleashed by the bandits who wrote the constitution that says we the people, they begin to become terribly paranoid once the word is used. But let us walk away from the Nigerian predilection with rebranding words and bringing new meaning to English words. At least we turned bogus to something big instead of what the English intended for it. But revolution in the classic word And that's the way I'm using it, just so we're clear. Revolution means a turnaround. It comes from the Latin root, revolve, a turn around. It means you turn around. You're where you did not want to be. You recognize the need to turn around from the course you are pursuing. So you turn. So a revolution is a turn around. Now, nowhere in the world does it say anything about carrying arms. I've never borne arms in my life. I don't even know how to fire a gun, whether that's a Dave gun or whatever gun, I can't fire. Ordinary to kill animal self is an ordeal for me, other than the occasional chicken when I was young and I had to be compelled to do. So let's be clear that we should not allow those who will be opposed to changes to define the character of the change that we seek. It is not in my interest or your interest or anybody's interest to be violent in seeking change in Nigeria. If you think about it, the only persons who loses when violence is brought into the space are the Nigerian people. Our rulers don't lose anything. They have their mobile police guards, they have their military guards, they are living behind very tall walls, bulletproof cars. But the ordinary man on the street, the Nigerian middle class, whether that's lower middle class or upper middle class, they are the first line of attack for those who have considered themselves disadvantaged and disenfranchised. So violence is not something that anyone who truly loves Nigeria and is interested in change would ever preach. I'm not a violent man. I do not believe in violence, and I do not believe it is required before a change might come. The truth is that the numbers of those of us who are desirous of a united, prosperous Nigeria ruled by law were by far more than those who do not desire change. The percentile of our rulers to those of us being ruled, and each person who is a ruled and not a member of the ruling class in Nigeria is perennially disadvantaged by the system we run. So in reality, nobody gains anything by being violent. The soldiers guarding them, the policemen guarding them, they are us. They are our brothers and our sisters. They feel our pains. If we don't go out on the street fighting, they are not going to come fighting us. There is no need to fight anybody. There is no need for anyone to fight. So let's be clear that a revolution does not necessarily mean violence. Violence is the response of those who profit from the system you seek to change. Part of why I'm having this series is to also speak to us. Do not let us begin to think at any point in time or accept the reasoning that at every point in time when we speak of change or when we seek change, that we necessarily seek violence. Thank you. Another question that I have found myself asked severally is, how do we fix the Nigerian system? Will a change of the Nigerian constitution be enough to birth the Nigeria of our dreams? I wish I could say that a change of the Nigerian constitution would be the magic bullet that would slay our problems and bring us to the El Dorado that we have all sought for a while. But no, it would not be enough. But it certainly is a prerequisite. Before we might even begin the journey to a better Nigeria, it is imperative that the current Nigerian constitution, which is a fraud, in the classic sense of the word fraud, needs to be jettisoned. And a new constitution needs to be embraced by the Nigerian people, sitting in their own assembly as free men and women. Why do I call the current constitution a fraud? I will explain. And this is important for the younger people in the audience because they did a fantastic job of stopping the history. They stopped teaching history in the secondary schools, and it became one of the discounted disciplines, even in the university to a very large extent. And it's not without reason. It's because those who rule us do not want us to remember our history. Now, the last time the Nigerian people sat together in any assembly anywhere to craft a constitution for themselves was in 1963. That constitution built on the Independence Constitution, which was itself the product of agreements, negotiations. There were negotiations dating back to as far back as 1948, leading into 1951 and 52 with conferences in Ibadan, leading to conferences in Enugu, and then the Lancaster House conferences, where agreements were reached between the ethnic nationalities within the Nigerian space. Not only just the three behemoths in the Nigerian space, not just the Igbo, the Yoruba, and the Hausa Fulani, as we like to lump it together. The voices of the minorities were heard. And that was what led to the creation of the Willings Commission for the protection of the rights of the minorities. The Urobos had a voice, the Ijos had voices, the Angas, the TVs, the Biobio. No matter how small you were as an ethnic nationality in the Nigerian space, you had a voice. You had people who spoke for you. Representations were taken. And at the end of the day, one of the clear products of that Willings Commission was the introduction of the Bill of Rights into the 1960 Constitution, the Independence Constitution. This was to ensure the protection of the rights of the minorities who were already apprehensive about their rights within the three regions where they were all minorities, fearful of domination by the major tribes. That was built upon, and that was what led to the 1963 Constitution that created the Middle West out of the old Western region. If Nigeria had continued to grow its constitution within the framework of the parliamentary democracy that was the agreed position amongst all of the constituent regions of Nigeria and even the minorities, we probably would have ended up with the 6 geopolitical zones as regions today, because that was part and parcel of what came out of the Willings Commission of Inquiry, of the Commission for the Rights of the Minority. But the bandits of 1966, both the ones who tagged themselves revolutionary and the counter-revolutionaries who came thereafter, they did a fantastic job of stealing a state. They destroyed the foundation of the Nigerian nation that was laid by the various agreements that were reached pre-independence, and they foisted themselves on the Nigerian people by force of arms. A nation was stolen in 1966. The nation that was stolen in 1966 has never been returned to the Nigerian people, because the will of the person with the biggest gun in the land has ruled since then. Let us take this. After the military came in 1966, after the Biafran War, another subject that I'll speak on at another time, what happened was that the victors in that war, the hegemony that won that war, has been the hegemony that has given Nigeria each and every one of its constitution. Nowhere has the Nigerian people freely agreed to be governed by a structure that has 36 states, 774 local governments. This structure is what is killing almost every chance of evolving a Nigerian nation. So, yes, a change to our constitution would be nice, it would be ideal, but the reality is that even after that might have been done, there has to be an accounting. People have to account. There has to be a reckoning. People can't be sitting down, but that's not the question for now. The key question is this: will the Constitution take us to El Dorado? No, but it will set us on the path. If Nigeria is ruled by law, we are almost halfway to solving every one of our problems. So no, it won't get us there, but it will set us on the path there. Another question that has been asked here is, has a Nigerian nation ever existed, and is it really attainable? I posted a couple of days back. I said Nigeria is an idea, something along those lines. And Nigeria is a good idea, but it doesn't exist in reality as a nation. The Nigerian nation is a good idea. It's an excellent idea. One very interesting gentleman on Twitter then tweeted back at me and said something to the effect that he pointed out the obvious, actually, but I had never really looked at it the way he dealt with it. He said, it is that nationhood is found in the cauldron, more or less like in the cauldron of our shared interests, heroes, tragedies, victories. Sometimes in football, we come close, but then at other times, we lose it. So no, Nigeria is not a nation if one must be linguistically correct. At best, Nigeria is a country. In fact, I got asked the same question this morning on a radio program. Nigeria is not a nation. It is a state. It is a state, and at the end of the day, it has the potentials for nationhood. And that potential for nationhood, once it is enabled, our potential is scary. There's something about us. There's just something about us. I have traveled around a bit, and what I found very quickly is that if I found a airport lounge with 20 Black people, and there was only a single Nigerian in the crowd, and this is not me being a nationalist, I don't know how you put it, a chauvinist, I don't know how you say the other English, that or you go past me. But the key thing is, I'm not just being funny. Truth is, when I see a Nigerian in a crowd of 20 other Black people in foreign land, I know my brothers and sisters. I can tell them apart, whatever ethnic nationality they might be, I can tell them apart. There's something about us. There's just something about us. But we've never been allowed to become a nation by our rulers who profit by dividing us. It is amazing how they have managed to balkanize us into so many parts that we are almost unrecognizable. They remind us of all the reasons why we should never be one. But they never quarrel. They are business partners. Whether they are Igbos, Hausa, Fulani, TV, Idoma, whatever they might be, they are all friends. They marry each other. Even their churches and mosques do not matter. They don't even know God. If they knew God, we will not be the way we are. But they will persuade you to hate yourselves on account of religion. They will persuade you to hate yourselves on account of ethnic differences. But the same you're busy feeling sorry for the death of the Black American, when right here in Nigeria, you've been persuaded that it is okay to kill somebody else because they are just not members of your ethnic nationality or they belong to another religion. And yet, they don't kill themselves. They do business together. They marry each other's daughters and sons. So Nigeria is not a nation in the sense that you have asked, but it is a potentially great nation because we have everything to make us one. It is our rulers who have contrived to keep us apart. Another question is, how does one effectively create a new vision for the average Nigerian citizen who is preoccupied by existential struggles and complacency? How does one effectively create? Look, we have all done a fantastic job of telling ourselves just what the problems are. But one thing we've rarely ever done is also seek to imagine a way out of the problems that we have almost always eloquently explained. But I believe that the problem begins in our mind, and that is where we need to begin to unshackle our minds. Unshackle our minds because we tend to allow ourselves to be boxed into these intellectual manacles where we begin to argue. We take debate and we accept the argument as framed by our rulers and oppressors. So when you say revolution, for instance, somebody will say to you, violence. Those are the buzzwords by which they take you away from querying the status quo. What do I mean? If you want to take a man away from a moribund system, you want to change the system, there are two ways. You might focus on criticizing the operators of the system in order to get accepted by the system as a player within that system, which is fair enough, is usually the path to for every politician. More or less, you come out, you speak your own interpretation of what you expect to happen. And then more often than not, what you then find happening is that by the time you get into the system, you realize just how much you can or cannot do, the favor of getting into it. You suddenly find that the reality is a little different from what you were busy espousing before you became conformed to the system. Now, the problem with the Nigerian system for a conscious person is that you will find very quickly that our problems are actually systemic. Nigeria will never be changed by personnel changes. You cannot do anything with the Nigerian system. It is designed to fail. But having said this, how do we then persuade the Nigerian that it is worth fighting for and that there is a path to a different and better place? It's simple. The difference between implosions and revolutions is the presence of an alternative plan. If you do not have an alternative plan, what should be revolutions ends up being implosions, because people will simply explode in anger, they will fight, and then when they are done fighting, the system will put down the agitations. The system would work to push out the rulers who exacerbated the situation to the point where the people erupted. And then the system will get stronger because the same people that will replace the old order will be the old order. That is why you would have a Mugabe out of office in Zimbabwe in a revolution, and then you would have the crocodile take over from Mugabe. That was an implosion by which the system profited. That was not a revolution. If you come closer to Sudan, yes, they got rid of their former president, but a counter-revolutionary took place. A counter-revolution took place. And this counter-revolution only served to ensure that the system retained itself in power. So in Nigeria, we're already having implosions in several parts. The only thing we do not have as of today is our implosions backed up by popular mobilization that has a clear plan. The purpose of YouthQuake is simple. The purpose of YouthQuake is to let you know that we can together educate ourselves to the point where we create a conscious movement that demands from the Nigerian government and of the Nigerian people a different way of doing things. I will definitely be with you again soon. But I see several questions have come up. And I really am not a particularly good person with this, our internet thing. I'm just learning. And as I'm learning, you just have to bear with me. I'll try and answer a couple of them before signing off. Sorry, how much more time do I have? Oh, I got time, okay. Sorry about your credits and your datas, but I think we need to talk to ourselves. So, what's going on? Okay. So I'll look at some questions and try and take a couple of them. I'm seeing comments. I'm not seeing questions. Let me keep checking, maybe. And thank you all for coming in. The pleasure. Hey, Charles, I see you there. The problem is not the electorate, brother. It's not the electorate, Shola. It's we, those of us who think it's none of our business and we're failing in our duty to educate our people, particularly the Nigerian middle class. We are disconnected from the struggle. Meanwhile, we are actually the first-line victim of the Nigerian state and its many shenanigans. So we are the ones who need to be educating those who work with us, who work for us, whom we interact with on a daily basis, because we are meant to be the engine room of change in our society. But when we focus so much on our creature comfort and existential pursuits and struggles, what simply happens is that we lose the capacity to actually be of any use to the Nigerian people. So if the system is failing, the Nigerian middle class really needs to take a good look at itself. And that is both the lower middle class, the upper middle class, and the Nigerian rich is not even aware of what is in his own altruistic best interest, even their own selfish interest. Because the way things are going right now, if we have implosions, which are looking very likely with the way COVID is ravaging the land, the economic hardship that is bound to come as a result of the COVID, the obvious putrefaction in the system, we're all witnesses to the mess that we have seen going on in the national, and we will see more as the countdown to 2023 comes. and these clowns and jokers are busy jostling for office again, they'll be busy exposing themselves. Because don't think for 1 second that the renewed oversight activities have anything to do with Nigerians' interests. But off well and good, what it will only do is that it will expose them further. But we have a duty to break it down to those who are unable to see it. The average person from the from the Niger Delta should be outraged because there is an abject failure there. Where are the young middle belt and Niger Delta professionals? Where are they? Are they talking to their people? Why are they tolerating this? What are they doing about it? Let me see if I've got some other questions. Please feel free to send in your comments and questions. I would love your feedback. See, I'm learning on the job. I haven't done this before. Maybe by the time we're done with the 2 weeks thing, I might have learned to. Maybe I'll probably learn. I'm sure I'll learn. I'm learning in my old age how to use most of these things. So please feel free, send in your questions. I'm happy to take your questions. Somebody is busy congratulating me on the election of Akpata. What's my own with Akpata's election? What's my own? At the end of the day, how does it affect the average Nigerian lawyer and how does it strengthen our systems? The platform to which I belong, which is the Ramimba, Radical Agenda in the Nigerian Bar, has already had to say as far as Mr. Akpata's election is concerned. Ours is to watch him and pray for him. I have no expectation of him doing anything different from what Usoro just did. I expect him to be, in fact, let me, please, Mr. Akpata, surprise me. Let me not preempt you or presume to know what you will do, but please surprise us. Surprise us. Okay, I haven't found another question yet. I see a lot of comments. And thanks, all of you. You are busy telling me things that is improving my hearing and my eyesight. So thank you for the nice comments. When you begin to abuse me too, I'll thank God and take it as well. But like seriously, please feel free to send in your questions. I would love to hear from you. But I still have a couple of questions from the list I was running through. One of them is, how do we unite a country divided along strong lines, such as religion, tribe, class, and beliefs? Well, I think I already dealt partly with this earlier on. You can only unite people by giving them common interests. We have been so systematically discombobulated. Let me break it down. I've been accused of using too many Oyibo like that Benin man, so I don't want to do that. But what I am finding is that we have been deliberately torn apart. If you look at our constitution, for instance, it is not a constitution that is designed to unite the people. It is one that is designed to separate people. All these quota systems, that system, catchment area, everything about the constitution is reflective of the bandits who authored it, because it only apportions rights, and it apportions rights to groups. It doesn't apportion rights to citizens, because the Nigerian constitution has no room for citizens. If you want to unite disparate people, especially Nigerians, the first thing you need to do is make sure that the aggregation of rights, which allows for somebody to claim to speak on behalf of the Igbo, acquire rights on behalf of the Igbos, or speak for the Yorubas and acquire rights on behalf of the Yorubas, or speak for the Fulani and acquire rights on behalf of the Fulanis. What this does is that it means that grievance politics will always trump, and grievance politics will never look to unite a people. Because when you become united, the grievance politician loses his capacity to exploit the divisions. Now, the way we are structured right now, the constitution that we currently practice, what that constitution does is that it promotes divisions amongst the constituent parts. But if we imagine a new Nigeria where each person is a citizen, and the only way you can have that kind of nation is when you have a country that is ruled by law. I was speaking with a dear friend of mine, a younger friend, and I said to him, there is this Yoruba proverb. He says, "Ìlú tí kò sófin, ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ò sí níbẹ̀." When you loosely translate that proverb, what it's saying is that where there are no laws, there will be no infractions. But that is not true. The Yoruba proverb means more than that. Because if you take it in context, what the Yorubas were actually saying is that it is the absence of the rule of law that obliterates infractions. Where the law does not rule, it is different from where there are no laws. Where the law does not rule, there are no infractions. Nigeria is a nation where the law does not rule. And the law cannot rule because our system needs to preserve advantages to some people. Once upon a time, it used to be for some northerners. That was the myth. Then it became for the Hausa Fulani. And then it became, if you are Yoruba during the Obasanjo years. And then it became, if you are a Niger Delta person during the years of Jonathan. And then it became now the Daura Mafia. So here is the point. For as long as the right of citizenship does not inure to all equally, and you have aggregated such rights and they are now being exercised on behalf of citizens, what it means is that you infinitely discount the rights of the citizen, and you then thereby create a class to whom the law applies and another class to whom the law does not apply. Now, this is no longer about the Hausa Fulani advantage. What has happened is that Nigeria has now become a feudalized democracy where you elect your emirs and his ruling council, and where you equally elect your judiciary, because it is those you have elected as emirs who determine who becomes your judges and magistrates. So at the end of the day, what you have is a feudal system where the right of the citizen has been discounted. And if you want to ever mobilize the people to become one, you would have to make them one. You would have to make them one to unite the Nigerian people, be that Hausa, be it Fulani, be it TV, be it Idoma, be it Yoruba, be it Ogoni or Igbo. It is about the commonality of our interests and the equality of our citizenship. There can be no super class, and there are no super races anymore. And when you begin to blame this on an Hausa Fulani hegemony thing, let's be clear. Tinubu is not a Fulani man. Obasanjo, the last time I checked, is an woman. The gang ruling in Abia are from Abia. The ones in Delta are from Delta State. No Hausa man has ruled in Anambra or Imo. Each and every person have worked within the inequitous, horrible, evil system that we've run. But it has run with the connivance and active participation of our own. So you cannot blame this on an ethnic group. It's not the Fulani oppressing you. It is a class. They might appropriate powers on behalf of a people, but it is a class. So part of the discussion is meant to help us understand that our issues are not necessarily tribal or religious. They are about tribes. I believe it is only fair that I should stop enjoying the sound of my own voice now. Allow you the pleasure of sending in your questions. Today is the 1st of August. It is 5 days to the anniversary of the Orange Revolution, the Take It Back Now, launched by the Take It Back Now movement and Yeli Sowore. The anniversary is coming up, and I have seen banners and posters calling for more protests on the 5th. I have had a word with Yeli. We spoke at length, and he knows my own position about allowing the Nigerian state to have its usual orgy of violence when it seeks to stop peaceful demonstrators whom it treats as though they are terrorists just because they are asking for a change. We both agreed that there is absolutely nothing wrong with those who want to go and protest doing so. I, on the other hand, believe that it is best to mobilize for a seat at home in protest of the repression of our rights and a continued walk along this path of ruination. So, as a final word tonight, I would like to say, for those of you who will be going out to protest, it is your inalienable right to protest against injustice and to demand a change to the moribund system that we run now. I salute you. I will be sat in my house and I will be mobilizing others. If you cannot go out on the streets to protest, as the Revolution Now crew are calling, at least sit in your home in solidarity. Look around you and imagine what tomorrow will be for your children and for yourselves if we continue like this. Thank you very much for having taken the time to listen to my titi tata tata tata. I'm very grateful for your time and for your commitment to have stayed on. I look forward to reading your comments, and I'll take the questions when I come back to you again shortly. Good night, everybody. God bless. Oh, yeah. I'm supposed to be telling you I'll see you again on Monday. Enjoy yourselves. And please do share. Bye.